Alright. 3, 2, 1, boom.
Drew Barrymore was just 9 years old while suffering from the devastating effects of addiction. Because of her Hollywood success, she spent her
Whoa, I just sat down. Wait, I did not know that. What? 9 years old? That is so sad.
her nights and weekends in clubs with full-grown adults who were supplying her with substances. As if that wasn't
Did those people get reprimanded? What the hell?
crazy enough, her own mother was the one bringing her to these clubs and
Yo, electric chair for the mom, anyone?
parties. With no father figure in her life, Drew had
I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop pausing. This script is actually insane.
no way out of this darkness. That was until she met one man who understood her struggles on a deeper level, Keanu Reeves. Keanu
He's
had
so
also been
cute.
abandoned by his father. He also had dealt with the complicated life as a child actor. Therefore, he could not live in good conscience if he just watched Drew spiral down even further. And one night while Drew was at rock bottom, Keanu made a decision that would drastically change her future. It's a miracle Drew Barrymore made it out of Hollywood alive. And this is how it happened. The Barrymore family is one of the largest acting families in entertainment history, going back more than 400 years and spanning 7 generations.
400 years? Yeah, you kind of have an in, huh?
The family's roots in theater started in 18th century Europe, with Thomas Haycraft Lane and Louisa Roos Lane, who were traveling actors. At that time, traveling actors would move from town to town performing plays in town halls, inns, and even churches.
Sounds
Essentially,
fun.
wherever they could gather an audience, they would put on a show. The Barrymore name itself was chosen as a stage name by Herbert Blythe, Drew Barrymore's great-grandfather, who became known as Maurice Barrymore. Maurice moved to the United States and married Georgiana Drew, who also came from an acting family. Georgiana's father, John Drew, owned the famous Arch Street Theater in Philadelphia, which was sadly demolished in 1936. Maurice and Georgiana became the parents of 3 legendary actors, Lionel, Ethel, and John Barrymore, who became known as the Royal Family of Broadway. These siblings found major success in theater and film during the late 1800s and early 1900s.
almost as
Lionel
old as
Barrymore
Chad.
started on Broadway before moving to Hollywood, where he acted in over 200 films, including Grand Hotel and the Dr. Kildare series. He won an Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in A Free Soul. Ethel Barrymore also started as a stage actress
She's
who later
pretty.
acted in films and ultimately won an Academy Award for her performance in None But the Lonely Heart. John Barrymore was the most famous of the siblings. He starred in classic movies like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and
Ooh, I think Pippa watched that one. Maybe. Yeah, I
Dinner
think
at
Pippa
8.
watched
Unfortunately, John's son, who was also
Maybe
named
I'm
John
wrong.
Drew Barrymore, had a lackluster acting career whose most notable appearance was in the TV series Gunsmoke. The family's name was almost entirely extinct from the entertainment industry,
That Clint
so all the
Eastwood?
pressure to keep the legacy alive fell on one innocent little girl, Drew Barrymore. Drew was born on February 22nd, 1975, and just 11 months later she was
one. You put pressure like that on a child. That's so fucking weird. Sad and disgusting. Acting's not like a child job, in my opinion, man. You can't truly have a child act. Children don't have the cognitive ability to differentiate between acting and pretending.
land her first acting role in a commercial for
And
puppy
like
chow dog
imaginary
food.
stuff.
This is a baby, and this is a baby. They both have special nutritional needs. That's why a baby should have his very own baby food, and why a puppy should have his very own puppy food.
Barrymore appeared in a couple of TV movies and shows in her early years. At around age 4, she was cast in the TV movie Suddenly Love. Then she had a small role in the horror TV movie Bogey when she was around 5. Immediately after that, she made her first feature film debut in Altered States, which was a 1980 sci-fi horror film directed by Ken Russell. Although her role was small, it opened the door for her next film, which would drastically change her life. At age 6, Drew would secure a major breakthrough breakthrough acting role in the iconic film E.T. the Extraterrestrial. E.T. is about a young boy named Elliot who discovers and befriends a friendly alien stranded on Earth. Elliot and his siblings hide E.T. from the authorities and help him find a way back to his home planet. Drew Barrymore played Gertie, Elliot's younger sister. Gertie is a curious, lovable character who quickly warms up to E.T. and helps her brother keep him a secret.
Elliot, look what I made for you! Is he a boy or a girl? He's a boy. Was he wearing any clothes? No, you can't tell. Not even Mom. Why not? Because, grown-ups can't see him. Only little kids can see him. Give me a break.
Drew's performance stole the hearts of millions around the world. Not only was she adorable, but her innocence represented the joy and wonder that we need to protect and cherish for our children. And it turns out she was just as pure behind the scenes.
Now, I believed E.T. was real.
You asked the...
That's what I'm saying! When you have kids in... That's why kids can be really great actors, because you can convince them things are real, and that's their like natural response. It's so easy to fool children, and that's why it's so easy to groom them. It's so disgusting. People who do this kind of thing to kids, like, I don't know, man, face the wall. What her mom did to her is despicable, in my opinion.
Wardrobe lady, if you could have a scarf for E.T.'s neck, because he was going to get cold.
In June of 1982, E.T. became an instant classic after it grossed a whopping $800 million worldwide on a $10 million budget, which made it the highest grossing film of all time, and held that record for about a decade until it was broken by Jurassic Park. But before we dive deeper, a quick word from today's sponsor. Underdog is the place to play if you're a fan looking to cash in on all of your favorite athletes' performances. Just call your shot by picking higher or lower on 2 or more players' stats for a shot to win real money. Underdog is available in over 30 states, including California, Georgia, and Texas. Here are my picks for this week's games. New customers can pair my picks with this Steph Curry free pick. All he needs is 1 point to win. Underdog will have promos throughout November, with something big dropping the week of Turkey Day. Use promo code PatrickCC and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Download the app today and turn every bucket into a W with Underdog. Drew Barrymore had a more successful career than 99.9% of actors before she barely even had a conscious mind. She was what people call...
She was before Macaulay Culkin as well, right? Macaulay Culkin is a little bit younger, right? I think so.
Today, a Nepo baby. And while that may sound like a negative connotation, nepotism is actually a convoluted subject when you break it down. People often said that acting was in her blood, or that she was born to act, meaning that she essentially inherited this amazing window of opportunity built off the hard work of her ancestors. Which is good.
Yeah, what if you don't want to act? What if you want to be an artist or like do something else? What, you have to hold your whole life gun to your head? You have to do it?
But that would also cause some people to hate her, because there are so many actors that won't ever get the same chances or opportunities just because she is related to the right people with the right
Yes, that's also another big factor. Nepotism in workplaces piss me the fuck off. They will snub you for someone who's like got the royalty, like the blood. It's so annoying. I hate that shit.
Connections. However, there is a third way to assess nepotism that most people tend to ignore, and it is the ramifications that a child faces later on in life when they are essentially forced into a life or career without having any choice. Due to the success of E.T., you could argue that she not only honored but carried the legacy of her family's name. Unfortunately, her father did not care. He was merciless, violent, and abusive towards her. Drew
I have violent thoughts in my head. Drew's
earliest memory of her dad was the time he tossed her into a wall. She was...
How about I fucking toss you in a wall? I'll make you eat paint. Lead paint.
3 years old. He also held her hand over the flame of a candle, telling her that pain is imaginary. Talk about someone who was not a careerist. He was like, "I will burn this effing dynasty to the ground," Drew said. Considering her life at home was so dark, it's actually pleasant knowing she found some solace on the set of E.T.
When I came onto this set, I was like, this is my family. Steven can be my dad, you can be like my mom, and you are my brothers.
Yeah, she had an escapism thing. That's very common in children. If you have a setting away from home, they will try and adapt and look for the holes that they fill in. It's a very classic psychological situation. That's why when kids go to school from like an abusive household, sometimes they will look for teachers and replacements and get very attached to try and like fill in the holes, because children and little kids in general, they need it. Like, it's just like an innate urge. It's an evolutionary trait. It's very sad.
Barrymore looked at director Steven Spielberg as a father figure. She says that he is the first person that ever cared about her.
We love each other. I go over to his house and we play games and we see each other a lot, and we're still best friends.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's so easy to abuse that. If you are a true soul and you want to save someone like that, you're an angel. I'm almost tearing up thinking about it, but it's sad. It's so easy to abuse that kind of trust in a child, or anyone else for that matter, even if you're not a child, really.
He's the
sad.
first person I knew cared.
Now, some people might think it could have done additional damage that Spielberg was kind of like a father figure, but not an actual father. So once it was time for him to move on with his career, he wouldn't be able to provide or care for her like he was when she was on the set of E.T. But Drew says this was not the case.
But isn't it sad when you look back at it? You had to look towards Steven Spielberg, the producer or director of the movie, for a father figure.
What? Who better?
Is it a good thing?
Yeah, it is a great thing. And by the way,
But didn't it crush you when he wasn't available to you? When Steven Spielberg becomes your father figure and he's not really your father, and then you go, "Where's Steven? I need him."
He was never unavailable to me.
After E.T., her child acting...
Really? I did not know that. I mean, again, I don't know a lot about Steven Spielberg other than he's like a good, director. Aww.
Career
He must have known.
skyrocketed. Steven then took Drew to Saturday Night Live, in which she became the youngest host in the show's history.
Relax, kid. You're gonna be just fine tonight.
Hey, come on. Can I get you a glass of milk, honey?
Milk? I'm a Barrymore. Get me a drink and make it a double.
It's funny but cringe at the same time, man. That's a child. She probably doesn't even know what she's saying. I'm like laughing, but that's funny.
If only they knew that "get me a drink and make it a double" wasn't exactly a joke.
Exactly. Like with what we know now here, I'm like, is that really funny? I don't know, man. Just smiling because the audience is laughing. Yeah, again, children. Children are so pure. I know I joke about hating kids, but there's just something about like the innocence of a child that you want to keep it as long as possible. There's so much like horrible shit in the world, man. I feel so bad for her.
Sadly, at just 9 years old, Drew Barrymore's battle with addiction had begun. Her mother Jade got divorced from Drew's father and started solo parenting, which led to her mother taking Drew to the famous New York nightclub Studio 54.
What, you're 9 years old? How did they let her in? Everyone is at fault. Why did they let her in?
This club was highly exclusive, reserved for Hollywood elites to indulge in substances and animalistic fantasies. From the age of 8, Drew called herself a party girl, going out with her mother and her mother's friends to up to 5 times a week. I had
5 times a week?
a mom, but she was more like my best friend, said Barrymore. She was like...
That's such a bad indicator, too. I had a mom, she was more like my best friend. That's so bad. You only stop being a mom when, like, a little bit, when you watch your children grow up. Again, I read a lot of, like, psychology books because I had to take, like, a psych study course at one point. But you have to like take a step back, but you can't stop being a parent ever, period. You can't be a best friend. Like, that's such a bad like mentality. Not saying that she's saying it and she's wrong, like that she's just saying what she experienced.
Do you want to go to school and get bullied all day, or do you want to go to Studio 54? And I was like, yes, absolutely. In Drew's 1990 book called Little Girl Lost, she describes what it was like to go to Studio 54, and there was nothing as invigorating as walking in and being engulfed by the thud of blasting music and the swirl of flashing lights. It was Disneyland for adults, only I got to be a part of it. We went out pretty regularly, sometimes once a week and other times up to 5, but nothing was ever enough for me. Being the youngest person at every party spoiled me. People treated me like a little toy, always telling me how cute I was, patting me on the head, or giving me a playful squeeze. However, since I was dependent on my mom, I couldn't always go when I wanted, which was all the time. This led to numerous arguments. I'd want to go out and party, my mom would want to stay home. I'd storm out anyway.
Oh my god, this is so fucked.
She tells stories of using her little girl charm to convince grown men to give her alcohol. Can I have a sip of your beer? I asked. Yeah, sure, he said, handing me the bottle. I'm sure he thought it was cute to give a little kid a sip of beer, but I quickly downed the remainder of his bottle. Hey, I said a sip, he said, taking the empty from me. Sorry, I shrugged coyly. That's okay. You know, you just gave me my first beer, I said. Really? He said. Cool.
Well, I had grown up. Fast, and it's not very normal to see a 9-year-old at a big Hollywood party drinking.
No, it's not.
It looks a little weird, and people were
a little weird, poor girl.
laughing and just saying, you know, I dare you to do this, and I did, and I got really drunk, and it was such a scary, frightening feeling, yet it was such an escape from everything else in the world that I had a very liking to it.
It's important to know that Jade did not encourage, nor did she really know that Drew was drinking alcohol, because Drew did everything she could to hide it. Then again, she wasn't really supervising Drew either. Like,
and she's 9, man. She's 9.
What do you expect to happen when you bring a kid to bars and parties surrounded by adults multiple nights per week? Eventually, they're gonna get curious and want to try that drink that every adult around them is indulging in.
So you started drinking at 9? To prove a point, or to feel good, or to get drunk, or what?
Well, I didn't really know. I mean, when I was 8, I had had 2 glasses of champagne, and boom, I was like tipsy and you know.
Well, she also was abused. It's like an escapism for her. That's why she wanted to keep going back too with her mom and stuff. What the frick?
The life of the party, and I felt so good. All my problem had seemed, you know, to disappear for that hour that I was out of it, and I didn't realize that until I was 9 and I started casually drinking. And realized,
where would you get alcohol from at 9?
Oh, parties, friends, bars, clubs.
What were you doing at bars?
And they just handed it out.
A lot of the time it was for parties that I was invited to. A lot of the time I would walk up and they would be like, oh, it's little Drew Barrymore. Come right in, good publicity, you know?
Even though Drew was excited to participate in the adult party scene, even she knew something was wrong with her circumstances. She was desperate for more strong male figures in her life, and luckily in 1986, she would meet one, and his name was Keanu Reeves. Drew landed a lead role in a made-for-television Christmas musical called Babes in Toyland alongside Keanu.
Obscure masterpiece, Babes in Toyland.
Sometimes obscurity's good, but there was a good heart in that piece.
We had so much fun making it.
It was crazy. And Richard Mulligan, Jill Schoen.
Babes in Toyland was about a young girl named Lisa who was transported to Toyland, a magical place under threat from the villainous Barnaby Barnacle. With the help of her new friends, Lisa goes on an adventure to save Toyland and restore holiday cheer. The movie was—
I think I saw this when I was a little kid. It was like on cable or something. Yeah, it's a good movie. I barely remember it. I just remember Barnacle Barnaby or whatever.
Received largely negative
Keanu's
reviews,
so
but Drew is grateful
cute.
this film brought her and Keanu together.
I feel
Yes,
like I would look around and see the behaviors of the people that I wanted to be like one day, and they were always the kind, humble, gracious, hardworking, lovely examples. You are so that.
Oh, he's a smile, dude.
No, that's kind of you to say that. Kind of you to say. I mean, I love what I do, right? I mean, I love acting. I like rolling up the sleeves. I like going to work, and we ain't doctors saving lives, you know? But we can change lives. We can help, you know?
Now, Keanu is extremely humble. He doesn't take
He was being so humble. He was like, oh gosh, oh jeez.
credit for the compliment and tries to just move past it and start talking
Exactly,
about
dude.
acting. But Drew wasn't complimenting him about his acting. And he knew that. He knew that she was talking about him being a positive role model for her, who at the time was a troubled child. And despite Drew recognizing that Keanu could be a positive figure in her life, they had no means of remaining in contact. But little did she know he would be there for her again at her lowest moment. Drew's alcohol use was not exclusive to party nights out with her mom. After school and on weekends with friends, she did everything she could to get loaded. By the time Drew was
Yeah, she had actual like drug addiction. If you hand a child that's that troubled a bunch of alcohol, they'll want to not feel anything. They'll do anything to get to that point. Yeah.
11, she and the oldest boy had graduated from what they considered to be boring childish games to more mature activities, like raiding his parents' liquor supply and drinking themselves into a stupor that had them sleeping away the better part of the next day.
Oh
By
my
12,
God.
they added pot smoking and were getting stoned as often as possible. Drew even experimented with cocaine at age 12.
Probably one night, I usually got to a point where I couldn't do anymore or I didn't want anymore. Usually I stopped after a while. But one night I just kept going and going and going and nothing, you know, I was partying for like 10 hours straight or 12, 15 hours straight.
At 12 years old. When I was 12, I went to bed at like 9 or, 9:30 and I was out like a light, and she's doing coke. Yeah, imagine what her brain is like how it affects her brain. Like, again, I don't blame her for her circumstances. She was a drug addict, right? She grew up, right? She didn't die. She's probably fucking cooked. Her like brain and body's cooked.
And I just didn't stop and I just like went black for a long time, and it was really scary. And I became a blackout drinker.
Naturally, you're probably wondering, how did it get this bad? Where was her mother? And how was Drew even able to hide this from her? Well, you have to remember that it was the 80s, where it wasn't uncommon for children, even as young as 8, to roam about in their neighborhoods with friends all day and return home in the evening. They had more independence, but instead of playing...
She just has... Oh my god! My parents smoked, right? They would never smoke in front of me. They'd always hide their cigarettes. They knew it was bad. They never showed it to me, ever. I don't know. Like, I get it. Like, you're an addict. You're addicted to smoking. Like, my parents, at least, like, they hid their cigarettes. They always told us, don't ever fucking touch our shit. I will find out. My parents always counted their cigarettes as well. My parents are good parents in the sense that, like, yeah, like, yes, they drank a lot. Not drank a lot, Jesus. Holy shit. They smoked a lot. Now they don't. But they counted their cigarettes every time because they know that this kind of thing could happen with kids where they start sneaking it because they think it's cool. Yeah, like, that's a normal thing to do.
On the playground or riding bikes, Drew was smoking cigarettes and drinking beer, and Jade was not supervising or guiding her.
Where were you when she was going to parties and bars at 9?
I was never with her at bars at 9, but I would go with her to parties. There were a lot of industry functions and then private social /
At 9! Why are you taking your child?
Functions. And when we got there, we would stay together for time, then she would go her way
She looks
and I would
like a
go
ghost,
my way.
man.
And not knowing about the problem, I was not as scrutinizing as I should have been.
You just decided to just let her have some space?
Yes.
9 or 10.
Drew is so uncomfortable here too. Like, did you see her like kind of wipe her face? She's like, fucking cringe.
That's exactly the age where you need some guidance, some definition, some.
Look at her
face. A parent to back off and give you space at 9 or 10, especially if you were where Drew was at that time.
Part of it was the fact that I didn't have a dad. I felt like my mom was abandoning me because she was always off at work.
And to get a glimpse at what lying to her mother might look like, here is Drew at 12 years old on national television using her charm to lie to Joan Rivers about her partying at the Helena nightclub.
So, gonna be 12, but you go out late at night. I saw you, Drew Barrymore, cha-cha-cha,
and they're laughing about it. I hate this so much. I hate it. And they were just laughing.
Elena's at like midnight.
Really? Oh, okay. Now see, there's an explanation. Okay. See, Helena, I really don't go to clubs. I mean, people think, oh yeah, she's like she goes out every night. That is not true. See, Helena is my godmother, so I like to visit her every once in a while. Very seldom, but I mean.
Anthony Kiedis, lead singer.
That's a learned behavior too, by the way, like lying like that. On the spot.
The Red Hot Chili Peppers wrote about a time seeing a 14-year-old Drew Barrymore at Studio 54. I did a double take when I saw 14-year-old Drew Barrymore at the bar, drinking with the Bukowski crowd. She was adorable, spoke with a potty mouth, and carried on as if she were in her 20s. I was straining to approach her but backed off. I'd been in enough trouble. The next time I looked, she was gone. A couple nights later, she reappeared in the same—
Wait, what? I was straining to approach her. Excuse me?
Same spot at the middle of the bar, entertaining the bartender. I pulled the trigger this time, and whatever I had to say, she bought. Anthony was 27 years old at the time.
Can we nuke Hollywood off the planet, please? For the love of God. Okay, like make a little bubble and just nuke it.
Seemingly admitting to fantasizing about a 14-year-old. And if you think that might be a stretch, in his 2004 biography, he told a story about sleeping with a girl who confessed to him that she was 14 years old the next day. Then he admitted to sleeping with her one more time after knowing her age, seemingly trapped in an endless cycle of drug addiction and surrounded by predators, all while trying to navigate the pressures of fame, working a full-time job, going to school, and thinking her mother doesn't care about her. Drew felt all of her problems—
I mean, her mom didn't care about her. I don't know why. The word thinking, it's like, yeah, she doesn't. An actual parent will not put them in a situation like this.
Would go away if she just did not wake up one morning. And at age 13, she attempted to make that her reality, but luckily, she was unsuccessful. Her mother recalled the incident saying, "She told me in confidence that it was nothing but a bid for attention," Jade says scornfully. Jade sent her daughter to an 18-month stint in a mental health facility in Van Nuys, California, where she was treated for addiction.
And when you go through those two doors, you do not come out. And I was there for 1.5 years.
Yo, I'm surprised she's alive, bro. Attempting at 13? That's so young, dog.
I hated it. I kicked, I screamed. 1 minute you're at movie premieres and clubbing, and the next minute you're in a full-blown institution.
Drew's treatment was tough. She had to follow a strict, military-like routine. She had to do her schooling, then attend group therapy, and one-on-one therapy sessions. But as a rambunctious child, she could not help but act out.
And you couldn't mess around in there, and if you did, you would get thrown either in the padded room or get put in stretcher restraints and tied up.
Why were you so bad that you had to go in the padded room?
I grew up, with like the Go-Go's and Wendy O. Williams and Blondie and all these like badass chicks. And I just sort of would
Grew up, you were a child. That's why it's so sad to hear this. She's acting, well, not acting, I shouldn't say that. She's explaining it like she's 20 years old or 18 years old. She's She was 9. She grew up way too fast, and it shows in the way she even talks.
Channel my inner riot girl. And some days it was really funny. I would rile up all the girls and I'd be like, listen, this place, these people don't care about you. Let's fucking show them, all right, everybody. I would totally rile the entire joint up.
At first, Drew hated that her freedom had been stripped away from her, but then she gradually started to come around to the idea that she was getting the help that she desperately needed. From there, she began to confront her addictive behaviors and her underlying childhood trauma. It was the institution that suggested she legally separate from her mother and be declared an adult at 14. Barrymore says the experts there believed that if she were to go back out into the world, she'd be better off on her own. Just at the age most kids become freshmen in high school, Drew was living on her own in LA as a 14-year-old legal adult.
Why? How? What? Alone at 14?
I first lived in my apartment that I was so scared, and the truth is that I would let the laundry and dishes and everything pile up. I didn't know how to clean. But this was where I learned how to take care of myself. The books were the school, and this was like the domestic journey of learning how to live.
Well, her parents were not teaching her that, so I guess, yeah. She got basically thrown to the wolves. Yeah, 14. Yeah, YouTube wasn't an option. She didn't have, the internet to scroll through and tell her what to do. She just goes in blind.
On your own. Kids don't know how to take care of themselves until you teach them.
Drew had incredible resilience. Unfortunately, word had spread throughout the industry that she was a drug-addicted lost cause, and nobody wanted to hire her for more acting roles. They just wrote me off as damaged goods, and I, sadly, understood that. Drew remained on the straight and narrow for 6 months, working at a coffee shop and trying to assimilate back into the real world. Sadly, she slipped back to her old ways.
Right, and on my 6th-month day, I celebrated by getting loaded. Yeah, really. Way to go, Drew. I got loaded that time because I wasn't doing it for myself at all. I was doing it to not really impress everybody, but it had gotten out months before that I had a problem, and it was on the cover of the tabloids and everything.
Yep.
And I was so sick of hearing about it. I thought, okay, I'll just prove it to them, and I'll shut them up, and I'll do this. So when I was staying sober that time, I was doing it for everybody else.
Yeah.
And you just can't stay sober that way because you have to want it for yourself.
Drew seemingly accepted that her future was over. She would just live the rest of her life looking.
Yeah, again, this all circles back to needing to do something for yourself as well. It's sad, dude. Sad.
For her next high, and she had to, because the only way she could mask her shame was through drugs and alcohol. And although he is not a man of many words, Keanu Reeves understood Drew on a deeper level. Keanu's father, Samuel Reeves, struggled with substance abuse. He was in and out of prison for selling heroin until he ultimately abandoned his family when Keanu was just 3 years old. From there, he had various different men in and out of his life while his mother was dating. He lacked a father figure, just like Drew. Additionally, he was kind of an outcast in Hollywood like Drew. Early in his career, Keanu's agents told him that his name was too ethnic.
What? I think it's a beautiful name. What the hell? Too ethnic?
Which led to him temporarily changing his name to KC or Casey Reeves. Sure, he did eventually find success on the big screen, but his personal life did not get easier. In 1993, he lost his best friend and fellow actor River Phoenix. In 99, he lost what would have been his one and only child after the baby was stillborn 8 months into his girlfriend's pregnancy. Although he and his girlfriend separated, they remained good friends, and she tragically passed away in a car accident less than 2 years after they lost their child.
Oh my god, I've heard this story before and it never gets easier, man. That is so sad.
Keanu had every reason to be spiteful, angry at the world, and spiral into darkness. And despite all of these tragedies that weren't his fault, he somehow remained humble, kind, and caring for others. Although he gets praised for gifting his stunt crew custom Rolexes, gifting motorcycles to fellow cast members, or taking multi-million-dollar pay cuts to save films, he shows his true character through small acts of kindness, like showing up to his fans' weddings, giving his seat up to a woman on the subway, spending time with homeless people on the street, or taking time to speak with and listen to his young fans. So while seeing Drew at her lowest,
and every photo he has with a female, he does the hover hand, or he puts it like on their shoulder very lightly. You will not find a picture of Keanu Reeves, him putting it on their like waist or anything like that. He always hover hands. It's so funny. He's such a Giga Chad, dude.
this moment, he knew it was time for him to do something. On her 16th birthday, while Drew was in the club partying, Keanu Reeves tapped her on the shoulder. He was about to change her life.
I was at this club, and it was my 16th birthday, and you came in, and you walked in, and you grabbed my hand, and you took me outside. You put me on your motorcycle.
Oh my.
And you took me on the ride of my life, and I was so free. I was such a free human being. It was just this moment where I just remember loving life. I hold it so dear because the older we get, the harder it is to get to that.
Now he sounds like a kidnapper. Okay, simmer down. You would get on a motorcycle. You would get on a motorcycle with Keanu Reeves.
Feeling.
Keanu and Drew raced through Los Angeles on a motorcycle, giving her the feeling of freedom and bliss while being protected by someone she knew genuinely cared about her.
The reason I love your reputation so much is because I want to live my life by that. Is to be a good person, like at my job, with my kids, with my friends, in no such order. But there's a problem I have with rebellion and authority.
No, rebellion is good.
It is?
It is, of course. You can't just kick out rebellion. Rebellion is usually a thoughtful gesture.
Even though it feels so impulsive?
Yeah, but it feels good.
Yes, it does!
And if you're barking and, it depends on what you do with your bite.
Drew saw life in a whole different perspective. She realized
it's funny because their stories are very parallel. They are. And when you parallel stories like that, you can see, when you see a victim or someone who has to hide themselves just like you, he probably saw what he saw in himself and wanted to help her. In a completely platonic way, by the way, not like an, oh, I'm gonna fall in love with you. It's so heart-wrenching.
that giving into her addictions is not rebellion. That is surrender. Alcohol and partying was tying her down, not freeing her. Keanu was living proof that you can overcome your trauma. And after that night with him, she had to ask herself, am I gonna get back into acting and get my life together?
And I had to ask myself, like, did I really want to fight and prove to myself that I wanted to be here? And the answer was a really genuine yes. Like, it was my love. It was my passion. It's what my family has done since the silent films and theater and into the talkies. Like, I feel a genetic cosmic pull, and I love storytelling, and I love it. And that was a really cool revelation for me.
But there's a healthy way to do it. Bro, I do find that, like, endearing that she still has, like, an attachment to it, even though it's caused her so much harm.
I love what I do, and I'm not doing it for anyone else or for the wrong reasons.
From there, Drew slowly started to rebuild her acting career, landing a role in the film Poison Ivy at age 17. Although the movie wasn't a blockbuster hit, it proved she could focus,
Yo,
stay
she's so
clean,
hot,
and work in the
holy.
industry.
I like her
Many of
hair.
her roles for the next few years were smaller, lesser-known films. She focused a lot more on producing and writing, seeing as working behind the scenes was more manageable and creatively stimulating for her. And whenever times got tough, she thought back to people like Keanu.
Until now, we have both had the privilege and fortune to keep going.
Yeah.
And what a gift and a blessing that is.
Yeah.
Drew went on to have a spectacular career, landing prominent roles in blockbuster hits like Batman Forever, the horror classic Scream, Never Been
Oh yeah, she was in Scream.
Kissed, Donnie Darko, Charlie's Angels, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, 50 First Dates, Fever
Dude, she was in a lot of good movies, man.
Pitch, and countless other hits.
Yeah.
In 2009, she delivered one of her most praised performances in the HBO film Grey Gardens, earning a Golden Globe Award and a Screen Actors Guild Award. This highlighted her versatility and growth as an actress over her 30-year Hollywood career. Drew continues working in front and behind the camera, but has ultimately settled into becoming a full-time mother and talk show host with her very own show called The Drew Barrymore Show, which is currently on its 5th season. Now, there are many factors that led to Drew surviving the depths of addiction and the ramifications of a terrible childhood. And let's not minimize the lifetime of hard work that she put in to overcome her setbacks. But Keanu's actions started a butterfly effect of her becoming the prosperous and gracious person we know today. You never know what somebody else is going through. And even if you think you do, simply the smallest act of virtue can drastically change the outcome of their future. So next time you have a chance to act, ask yourself, what would Keanu Reeves do?
Oh, that is so sweet. Oh, I'm glad she turned it around. No, I genuinely think that that certain, like Hollywood specifically, I have the biggest gripe with Hollywood. They do poison people from such a young age that you can't really blame the things that some people do. Again, like the actor, what's his name? Drake Bell. He did horrible things, but then it came out that it was a result of being damaged at like literally a child's age. It's a really vicious cycle. It's really sad, and I hope she breaks it.